Hello and welcome to everybody to the Gift of Truth Common Law Education session. We are very grateful that you're spending this time with us, empowering yourself with the gift of knowledge, because as we all know, the truth is what is setting us free. The date today is Thursday, the 8th of February 2024, and presenting this educational session this evening is our wonderful educator, Karen. Karen, as always, thank you so much for your time and effort that you spend preparing the documentation. The topic being discussed this evening is the exemption process, where you will learn about your birth certificate and its value as security for your property, bills of exchange, secured party creditor, and holder in due course. Before we start, we're just going to read in our disclaimer quickly. As we step into living in private as men and women in the land jurisdiction, we comprehend that there should be no disclaimer, as each and every interpretation and overstanding of anything and everything that we as living souls experience is unique. The responsibility is our own as to how we use educational material such as this. Everyone reading these pages, watching this video, or listening to the audio has enough wisdom to follow their own course. The choice is yours and yours alone. So with that out of the way, I'd just like to ask, please, if everybody can keep your microphones on mute and your cameras switched off. We will do questions and answers after the presentation is complete, and then my co-host taking over for Q&A. Together with answering lots of the questions with Karen. So we're going to get started now with an introduction video. And again, I'd like to say thank you to everybody for being here on this journey with us, co-creating our wonderful new earth. Thank you. I'm now going to share the video, and after that, we're going to hand across to Karen. Thank you to everybody for being patient. Here we go.
You are not circumventing contracts. Equity is brutal because the creators of all of this, they understood this, there ain't any money. All right, so what you're better off doing is doing a secure party process and then tendering them a negotiable instrument. Yeah, they may not accept it. Yeah, they may try to send it back. Send it back to them, but they send it back with a letter. Okay, we have a UCC 3-603B, all right, which talks about if they reject something, then the debt is discharged. Why? Because what else can you give them? Tell me this, y'all. When you pay your mortgage, is there any other thing you can give them besides the negotiable instrument to satisfy your mortgage? Federal Reserve knows the negotiable instrument. There's nothing else you can give them. If they won't take a negotiable instrument, there's nothing you can give them. They're operating in a territorial jurisdiction of the United States, which is why the Federal Reserve even exists, because within the Republic, they can only use gold and silver.
All right, yo, thank you so much for watching that. Karen, are you ready to get started? Can I put the screen share doc up?
Yes, please do. Good evening, everyone. Thanks for coming. I always choose Yusuf L. He shouts at us. I just said to Michelle, I like the way he shouts at us. That was, you could hear the secured party creditor explanation in it. And the fact that there isn't any money in the world, there is only negotiable instruments. And you'll learn the next step from your, you have read the disclaimer, Michelle?
Yes, I have done. Thank you, Karen.
Okay. So we call it the exemption process. So it really is, we're going to start here. You're going to learn how every one of your emancipation documents, for those that have done it, you're going to take each page and you're going to understand what you've actually done. And then you can extend that process depending on your dedication to actually being a free man on the land. And then all of these processes also come together in creating communities and small governments and trusts. And it's basically your process of self-governance and independence and accountability and responsibility. So the exemption process, you'll see on your emancipation, it's actually a status correction. You'll see in your one document we'll get to at the bottom, this covers your reconveyance of name. So people underestimate the whole process of the actual name. It rules the monetary system. So your given name, in all capital letters, is the generating principle for this entire system that the world gets kept together. So you'll see them all break away. The weaker, you'll start seeing this Western culture, we like to call it, it's going to implode. And you can see it's imploding already with Brexit and all of those things. But for us to make a difference in the world, it's to get your process, your self-discovery, your internal journey, and it does include the external, because it's the way you perceive the world. And our perceptions have been so indoctrinated. It's going to take quite a while, but I find when you actually start expressing yourself, which is writing things down, it is a form of assertion and declaration. So you start learning not to think as a slave, because the free man always makes declarations in its humility. So so the exemption process, we're going to understand your birth certificate and its value. Remembering we don't have money, so we're not going to value our birth certificate in fiat currency. We're going to change that whole concept, because right now it's a bond. As security for your property, bills of exchange, and how the bills of exchange, you're supposed to do this process first. You then have a bond number that you can quote your bills of exchange with. It's called the secured party creditor process, which puts you in the position of holder in due course. I don't think many people understand what the holder in due course is, and it's important to know, because that's your power of your name. So value. So we and our assets are the value, the only value that exists, and the only value creating all other values as well. So this is how the self-discovery starts, is to actually look at what is your actual value, because none of us have a clue. So we have not given away, nor have we entrusted our assets, nor have we abandoned our authorities related to them. We are victims of a crime, and in no way is our ownership changed or impeded as a result of a crime. This is so important to get into your psyche. Observe the maximum eternal law. Ownership is not changed as a result of possession by pirates. These mercenaries, acting under conditions of deceit, are engaged in acts of inland piracy carried out under the color of law. This has been the condition since the situation began. So we're going to go into understanding your birth certificate, because this, as I'm sure most of you know now, who've been jumping into the common law, that your birth certificate is your business. It's actually what it is. So let's understand how the birth certificate functions and how you use it to function yourself in this crime that we're living in. So it has two basic functions. First, it is an insurance indemnity receipt, which is required under the Lieber Code. This is how it all began, the Hague Convention. They have to give you an indemnity receipt for the property they are stealing from you, essentially an insurance policy guaranteeing that your property won't be harmed as a result of their use of it. This makes you the subrogee, the insured party, the priority creditor claimant of any bankruptcy of your own estate holdings. Now, your estate is your birth certificate. That's what you've got to remember. So the whole way through this lesson, we're going to be speaking about an estate in capital letters. And then from that estate, which is called the Setuki V, they create the trust for the Setuki Trust. It's not the same thing. The one's an estate, and your Setuki Trust is where your value sits in the system we're living in. This process of registration, regis, meaning crown, as opposed to recording, which is common law, creates a separate person named after your given trade name, yet owned and operated by a franchise of the municipal RSA Inc. We've explained this. There isn't just one South Africa. There are I think there are more than 3 or 4 actually. I haven't double checked on all of that. But we've got the RSA Inc., which is running the show. They're a foreign government sitting on our soil. They are commissioned just to run the administrative affairs, but they've turned into criminals. It's a criminal syndicate being pushed by the crime bosses, which mostly we don't know them. Zita exposed them in her wonderful emancipation lesson run last night as the beginner's concept of learning where you're going to get to now. So your second birth certificate is a bond. A bond meaning a lien, a value put onto your head. Literally, it's a bond. It is a bond issued against the value of your estate assets that belong to you. So a bond is an IOU, a promise to pay under stipulated conditions. So they put a price on your head. And as I've explained, there's only one thing that keeps this world going, and that's our energy. So they basically, it's the same as a mortgage. It's a debt pledge that they put on our head, that they're supposed to pay us back or give us access to, but as we'll find now, it doesn't work the way it's supposed to. Mostly because we aren't doing this process. You have the certificate proving that you are the actual owner of the assets being bonded. But until and unless you claim your exemption from their system of things, the benefit of the bond goes to the State Department that is insuring your purloined property against loss of damage. So they're insuring you against loss for the use, and they're making us pay to use our own stuff. That's what's really going on. And this process is how to get out of this and function the way the system was actually set up for us to function, but we were never taught. Now, notice a couple of other things about your birth certificate. There are 2 prominent dates displayed on the certificate. One is your actual birthday, and the other is the filing date, when the person, a corporate municipal franchise, was created and replaced you as the beneficiary of your own assets. So you, the living man or woman, have a birthday, and the corporate franchise person named after you has a birth date. Notice that, because these things all come up on your form. Any form that's given to you by government that you must fill in, and it says birthday, you can scratch it out and write birthday. There are all kinds of little things. They can't stop you. So that in itself will destroy a whole document. And the corporate franchise person named after you has a birth date, which is always a few days or weeks after your birthday. In effect, the birth certificate records the death of your claim to own your own estate. So your time lapsed to make your claim against your own assets, and that's when you became a slave. So your birth certificate is actually a recording of your death to be able to make the claim. And you wait till you're 21 or 18, 21 or 18? And then you make your claim when you sui juris as an adult, and you claim all your assets back. And this is what this is all about tonight, is to take hold of all your assets and put them back into your responsibility, accountability, and ownership. So in effect, the birth certificate records the death of your claim to own your own estate and trade name. Remember, it's your business. It's your business and it's your trade name. And the birth of the federal person's claim upon your assets. So you are always the holder in due course the party having the first claim, priority claimant, first in line, first in time, to that trade name and your estate. But if you don't claim it or know how to claim it, you are out of luck, and you're going to be we're all disinherited until we've fully claimed all our whole thing back, all our assets. The birth certificate is signed by the registrar and officer of the probate court, which is the courts of death and wills, which proves that your estate was probated. The living South African, you were declared dead, as most of you know, you were lost at sea. So your estate fell under probate. And that's why we send our trusts and things and your emancipation to the master of the High Court. That's the probate court. So the living South African First National, that's what you become when you're emancipated. So named Frank Ben Ernest was taken off the title of his natural estate and his natural nationality and his natural political status and was changed to that of Frank Ben Ernest. Municipal franchise corporation and a citizen of South Africa. That is a citizen with a code which allows corporations to be citizens. They can't otherwise. A corporation can't really be a citizen, so the whole thing's fraudulent. So the birth certificate is issued on bond paper, giving you silent notice that the assets named on the face of the document, your unlawfully converted estate assets, including the Crown copyright to your trade name. So they take the capital name and they put a Crown copyright on it. So your trade name, your land, your labor, everything you could ever own has been seized upon and bonded by the organization issuing the certificate. Bond paper, that means it's got a value to it. The process of false probate, just described, results in the unlawful conversion of your name and estate assets, makes you a South African corporate citizen instead of a South African First National, removes you from the jurisdiction of the land and deprives you of your constitutional protections, makes you indebted and obligated to pay the bills of the foreign corporations, being our government and all its agencies, and otherwise plays havoc with you and your entire country. This is done without your knowledge or consent, without your parents' knowledge or consent, and the people doing this to you are on your payroll. We are paying them to do this to us, supposed to be rendering you good faith service the whole while. Because you don't know that this is being done to you and that these false claims against you are being made, you have no opportunity to object to them, much less delve through it to rebut all these lies and claims, your exemption and exercise your indemnity. Your indemnity bond is your insurance claim that you're going to learn how to do. We're all going to learn. So your name is the form of John Michael Doe, is a trade name. So that is your municipal corporation name too, but it's your trade name. So all names are actually fiction. So they're now using this name, John Michael Doe, as a transmitting utility under the municipal Vatican British jurisdictions of the maritime law and the admiralty. So this name is your trade name when domiciled on the land. So that, you can see, that's your Christian name. It's domiciled on the land. And it's a foreign situs trust when domiciled on the sea. Do you see how difficult this all becomes? So that same name has got a jurisdiction in the sea and on the land. And you have assumed all your life that you are acting on the land and are a landsman, but thanks to the surreptitious corruption and falsification of the public records, which your mother unknowingly signed at the hospital, you have been misidentified as an orphaned, fatherless child donated to the state of whatever, province of this, country of this. It's an organization, they're all organizations, which is a foreign corporation operating in the international jurisdiction of the sea. So we, the South African people, are being subjected to vicious crimes: press ganging, identity theft, kidnapping, inland piracy, unlawful conversions, forced enslavement and conscription, mischaracterization of our nationality and political status, virulent fraud and racketeering, genocide on paper at the hands of people on our payroll, by attorneys operating outside their jurisdiction, and by banks operating as crime syndicates on our shores. That's why the central bank has got to come down. All this fraud in relation to land, property, and our homes and farms. So there have been innumerable land claim frauds since the 1860s, when all of this crown dirt began to earnest. These frauds have run full gamut from NEMA to the national parks, to the public lands. These people who are claiming all these things to our lands and the parks board, they're all foreign agents. The reservoir authorities, real estate titles, property taxes, zoning, public interest estate taxes, eminent domain, RSA Inc., land management agents, soil and water conservation districts, railroads, highways, public utility easements, public access takings, non-cadastral surveys. You're going to get these notes, and I put them all out there so you can keep them. Then you can look at them all. Non-cadastral surveys, abandoned public records, arbitrary and punitive taxation, municipal and government land leases, RSA Inc. agencies with environmental acts and regulations, and the list goes on into seemingly infinity. So the roots of all these burgeoning frauds, schemes, and many more had their genesis in the 19th century of the British Commonwealth and colonies. Britain has always been at the bottom of the dog pile, and never more than in the realm of land grabbing and land fraud schemes. So as I always say every time I teach, man and land are synonymous. A man without land or standing on the land cannot make a declaration or a claim. South Africans have been the victims of a ruthless, unlawful, and illegal process of unlawful conversion of their political status, serving to redefine them and denigrate them as South African citizens. So SA citizens, as I've written it there, are actually British subjects, not South African citizens. So that's your municipal citizenship. SA citizens are humans in the undisclosed caste system. Recently, Anna van Rijk has done brilliant articles that I've kept all of. And when you see the whole thing as a whole, they've created a global caste system. And that's what's happening now. It's the same as prisons. You get the maximum security, then you get this, and you get solitary confinement. It's the same, but with our name. An SA citizen cannot own land in this country. South African citizens are foreigners with respect to the country. We, as South African First Nationals, own all the land and the titles in the South African Republic in law. And all crown titles are fraud, fraud, fraud. Thanks for showing it in red. Learn to rid yourself of these by doing the deed of reconveyance of name and land. Anyone owning land or property, it's imperative you do your deed of reconveyance. We'll do workshops in the near future on helping people do that. I'll do another talk on land, which is so important. And it's for those who don't own land too, please. We'll plant some seeds. Learn to rid yourself of these by doing the deed of reconveyance of name and land, and create a lien bond on your estate name, which is copyrighted, and a bond lien of millions is placed onto your estate name and all crown registered assets, almost everything, and including your home, your farm, your small holding, your land, whatever, your shack, your house, anywhere, from the smallest to the biggest house. People are better off in smaller houses with what's coming. I must warn you all. I threw this in because it's powerful. This is the Bouvier's Law Dictionary. The omission of the Christian name, which is the man standing on land, named by either plaintiff or defendant, is a legal process, prevents the court from acquiring jurisdiction. And then I mentioned the color of law, which are all these false titles. A color of law, which is the appearance or semblance without any substance of legal right. So I've got to grant someone a servitude on my land, and they're insisting on having it registered. So I found some court citations and sent them to him. Yes, I can legally grant it, but I can legally, that doesn't mean you can physically use the road. And the judges have even, that was a judgment. So you're not allowed to physically use anything, not even your name. You're creating fraud if you haven't emancipated or done your status correction, and you're using your capital letter name. You're committing fraud, and that's how they've got us as slaves. We fraudsters all day long. So that's the color of law. This is something I bring up often in many lessons because it's so important. Because the word property, and remember when they speak about the expropriation of property. That goes right down to your children. It's all property. Everything we have in the world, until you've emancipated, it's property and it's theirs. So neither property nor the value of property is a physical thing. Property is a set of defined options. It is that set of options which has the economic value. It is the options and not the physical things which are the property, economically as well as legally. And because the public tends to think of property as tangible physical things, this opens the way politically for government and bank confiscations of property by forcibly taking away the options while leaving the physical objects untouched. This is the absolute truth, folks. And that's why I've come up with a new thing for the deed of reconveyance of property, flats, land, or whatever, where you can call up a deed at the deeds office and you can scratch out all the capital names and replace them with the names and endorse them. You can also do that and leave it there with them. Then it's still on the public record. So property is not land or anything tangible or physical. Now we explore how to stop the RSA and government from the theft. Starts off by copywriting your trade name as the next step. So you'll look on your emancipation and you've got a basic copyright. So you have claimed your copyright. This copyright process, you're going to put a value to absolutely everything that they could possibly do to you. If they arrest you, then it's like 2 million rand. You end up charging by the minute because that's how the prison bonds and things work. So through many of our common law and our sovereign forefathers, with all their research, they've dived deep into this, and we've now, thank goodness, got people who have put it out there for us to carry on delving. So the British Crown has cheek enough to copyright your South African given name and proposes to own you and your assets based on copywriting. You, me, I, we, us. It's all Crown copyright. The name your parents gave you, your given trade name, has to be reclaimed and copyrighted and permanently domiciled on the land and the soil of the province where you were born, together with all styles, orders, forms, punctuation, variations, abbreviations, and other derivatives. Remember, Mr. and Mrs., one of their favorite tricks. So examples. So this is a court case I embarked on, and I just took a few statements from it. You can see with the High Court supposedly defendant, but when you learn to do courts and things, you always make yourself the applicant by conditionally accepting or counterclaiming, counter-affidavitting. So Betty Ann Boop, a South African sovereign, First National and agent beneficiary donor and priority claimant, with the copyright claim for the legal fiction franchise Betty Ann Boop, and there's my ID number with no gaps, because that's the account that it must be drawn from. An estate trust, that's your CTT trust, with your estate birth certificate, in the National Revenue Fund, of which the Minister of Finance is the fiduciary principal. Folks, use this line when opening most of your correspondence that you put out there. It sets them 100% understanding that you've done your process. Without malice aforethought, we decline any offer to mischaracterize us as a CIPC Crown Copyright Corporation Director, Licensed Crown Copyright Entity, RSA Inc. Corporate Citizen. The addressees are not here. We deny being attached by name to taxpayer or CIPC, company, corporation, as it is a foreign municipal corporation known as a UCC contract trust, which is strictly refused and denied. We are not employees of the RSA Inc. government agency or local government and or municipal citizen and the SA Department of Commerce or SA Department of Transportation. I'll explain that to you. To our knowledge, we do not have any lawful legal contracts agreeing to be a corporate citizen of any corporation to date, unless coerced into it by non-disclosure and semantic deceit, meaning fraud. All registrations become the sole property of the Crown Corporation, such as converted living people into the dead world of fiction, without our consent. Corporations, cars, banks, homes, money, companies, RSA Inc., by a willful ignorance of the Facts Act. All names are Crown-owned copyrights. See, the abbreviation for that is COC, everything. Everything in the world has now got Crown copyright. And any and all use of such names without express consent of the Crown Corporation, Universal Postal Union, Vatican City and State, et al., is in fact a criminal act of stolen identity fraud. The birth certificate is proof of intent to aid and abet the user of such document to commit fraud, unknowingly, by deception, where any and all registry buildings, offices, SARS, CIPC, Home Affairs, Treasury buildings are the proof of premeditated intent to do so by virtue of them simply being in existence. Any and all contracts entered into using the name, assuming the name, are null and void ab initio, non pro tunc, where the party that offers the contract is guilty of aiding and abetting the other party into commission of fraud. As an example, any and all banks that offer a mortgage, a death pledge contract, are in fact aiding and abetting, knowingly or unknowingly, by commission and omission another into fraudulent contract, and are guilty with intent, where ignorance is not a plea of defense. Intent, it is a word you're going to learn as you go along, especially for the people who become fiduciary people, for trust and trustees, because your intention, basically, the intention drives the world. Could you just move back a little bit, please? Okay. So what happens? So everything, every single thing from your car, anything licensed, gun license, everything, it's all under Crown copyright. And as you can see, it's aiding and abetting. So the government have forced us into being criminals. But by doing that, they have put themselves into criminality. So because we were innocent and we didn't know, this is where ignorance of the law does come in, because it was their intention to put us into that. If there was no intention, you couldn't hold them responsible. you would be sitting with ignorance of the law with no defense. But because they're aware of what they're doing, and as I've told you before, all government officials have to have an insurance bond against personal claims against government. They have to take it personally. So this is basically the synopsis of why and how we get back at them and hold them accountable and responsible, because it was always their intention to harm us. That's the bottom line. So any and all claims of ownership of any and all things registered is in fact a proclamation of theft, where one is already in possession of stolen property by virtue of the registration. As an example, if one were to hand over an ownership registration document of a car with the birth certificate name on it, one is already guilty of theft and aids and abets their own guilt by doing so. See, so now you're starting to understand that our ignorance and our so-called stupidity, it was always their intention to keep us stupid. So that's your defense. It was their intention to harm you. Okay. A side note, all licenses you pay is for the use of your own Crown copyright name in all caps. Otherwise, you are committing fraud against the Crown, which makes us criminals in their system. So every license you buy, everything you register, everything you renew every year, you are paying to remain a slave, literally. So here's the court ruling. No state shall convert a liberty into a license and charge a fee therefore. That's a judge's rule. If the state converts a right into a privilege, the citizen can ignore the license and fee and engage in the right. Now that's a potent thing, and that's when, for the guns and arms and things like that, it's your right. All fraud begins and ends with a claiming using any and all names that are Crown copyrighted, intellectual property, until the intent of the Crown to deceive is exposed and reversed. We want to say we are no longer under Crown copyright fraud, as status is corrected and anyone using our fictional names are subject to copyright fines and penalties and charges. So for the people that are serious about it, we're going to do a workshop on copyright. Your common law copyright is actually a very powerful document. So all countries are registered Crown-owned corporations by virtue of contract, and were controlled by the unholy alliance of church-state, like a Vatican City-state, and the City of London state, and all fall under the Universal Postal Union post office jurisdiction. They rule and run the entire world. All countries, nations that have bar member operated courts are Crown. All of them. All our courts are Crown courts and they're owned jurisdictions. And any and all property contained are Crown property jurisdiction by virtue of the consent of the people via ignorance of the government they vote for and the rule by. So I sent a notice out recently to the registrar, to the CIPC commissioner, to the Minister of Finance, to the High Court, to the Magistrates Court, all in terms of one court case. And I suddenly realized the Crown, on top of the Crown, on top of the Crown, is taking the Crown to court with fictional money. I mean, the whole thing is Crown. It's a closed system of Crown copyright. All public officials that are non-bar members are with unclean hands. There's a doctrine called Doctrine of Unclean Hands, and acting in fraud by virtue of fraudulently using Crown copyrighted intellectual property without permission via first, their named claimant, slave status, and second, the false impersonation of title office, where all bar members are guilty by commission and omission, knowingly aiding and abetting this fraud against mankind, enticing the living into slavery, bondage, bond servants by deception with intent. That's the part that you don't ever leave out. All non-bar members are committing fraud and have to have insurance bonds to function in this position, and many of them do not. Most of them, I have found out, do not. Please use the public official questionnaire at the end of this document. I've put it in as a freebie present for all of you. It's powerful. And at the end of this document, which I can tell you, I have used this many times, and 3 courts could not take the government's case against me, which says most of them do not have the public hazard bonding that we can make claim against when you assert yourself to getting freedom as best one can. All postal stuff, I've got to talk because you're touching on the post going through emancipation. So the post office, there is a way through this, proved it 100 times over, that it gets a bit difficult if there isn't a post office in your small town, but you can overcome it because it's a very, very important process. So all post office stations worldwide fall under the UPU jurisdiction, which is Vatican City State, owned with its courts at The Hague and headed by the Pope. All mail dealings are church spiritual contracts and are binding upon the presumed acceptance. If one has a mailbox address, you are bound by those assumed presumed acceptance via joinder to your Crown copyright claim, name and claim. Best to use someone else's PO box, as in care of, especially when you do your emancipation docs, have them sent from someone else's post office. It's address and post box that you can use, and then you use care of. And if you haven't got someone, you can use general delivery at the post office. So this is also why one has to do the administrative process as a postal court process. The Zoom 5 I always put in from last year is the administrative court, your administrative process, which when done properly as per that lesson, it's a court case and it's on the land. How to get in the debt trap. Yeah. This notice of insanity renders the claims, acts, and authorities of the affected corporations, courts, agencies, trustees, board members, officers, elected officials, and other individuals responsible for promoting the existence of humans and subhumans null and void. I did the talk on the humans and the subhumans last week and how they came up with the subhumans. There was a race in Turkey that they started with, and they never stopped. So these organizations and individuals are not mentally competent by definition, in that they believe that humans and subhumans actually exist and have used constructive fraud to promote myriad felony-level crimes based on these delusions. They must be deemed criminally insane, armed, and dangerous. This is our system. And I think people have kind of woken up to that. There are all kinds of little militias and things. So after your status correction, folks, we call it the emancipation process. But when you actually use it in documents, it's not the correct terminology. It's status correction. And when your removal from your voters roll, then the next step to disentanglement is claim your name, the interest, the wealth, and the business back. That's called the secured party creditor, holder in due course, which altogether is called the redemption process. So now you've emancipated, now you're going to have redemption. I suppose you could call it ascension in some form. If it is, it's going up, it's getting out of the caste system. Simply put, the secured party creditor, now you're going to understand what the secured party creditor is for the people that have done emancipation. You've done the basic thing and you've notified government, it's in the public record. But you're going to go deeper so that you could start functioning with more safety. So your all capital letters trade name, birth certificate, your legal name, and claiming the value thereof, like I explained the value at the top, and protecting the assets and your collateral of that name by a security agreement. Remembering they're using you, your children, and all your assets as collateral for their public debt. So this creates you as a secured party or a lien holder. Remember, you put a bond on your own name. You claim it out of Crown copyright, and now you're going to assert and own the copyright with charges and fees. So you hold it over the name, therefore protecting the assets from lien, levy, seizure, garnishment, or forfeiture, remembering they use us as collateral for all the loans the Crown government makes. Completely explained. So if, say, you've got a mortgage, instead of going in and doing all the battles with the bills of exchange and the way that people are doing it, which you must be very careful of, you can get into trouble. This system here, it's a process, and it's a dedicated process that you take on, but it puts you into an entirely different bracket with abilities to discharge. But like the video, the first people are going to be the guinea pigs, and there are 4 of us going through the process right now so that we can teach you from experience. I've gone a third of the way, but we're going to be doing it over the next 3 weeks. This creates you as a secured party or lien holder over the name, therefore protecting the assets, from lien, levy, collateral. So the collateral word, you'll see, it's going to come up in your security agreement, which is all part of this process. It is the bond. Your security agreement is the bond, and your security agreement is basically a bond you set up that you list all your collateral and you take it away from the Crown and the public debt. That's for all, okay. Because of the fraud of the legal name trickery that you were unaware of until now, and fraud vitiates all contracts. If the party being defrauded takes affirmative action to call out the fraud, you have in effect cancelled out the disastrous effects of those contracts in your life that were done without your consent or your best interests at heart. I'm sure you'll get to a point of understanding better. We all see higher levels of fraud, corruption taking place every day, bringing the growing number of people that are learning about secured party creditor filings. There are millions doing it in America now. Now is not the time to be a debtor. So let me explain for the people that are doing bills of exchange that are. You're still operating and functioning as the debtor. You don't have a bond number to put onto your bills of exchange, and that's what this process is we're working towards. And by the time these people who do the bills of exchange, it will be a different process, no fears. Because for instance, once you've become a secured party creditor and you've got a bond at the bank, you just give them the bond number with your security agreement and they have to set it off. Not discharge it, they set it off. It comes out of the national debt. And this is the difference. You will reduce, if everybody did this, there would be no national debt in a very short time, actually. So we must first, so your secured party creditor over the trade name strawman, as we said. So we must first understand that we all function through our trade name or our strawman. The trade name is your business, and you, as a living being, functioning in commerce through your trade name. However, you're not the same as the trade name. This is one of the main purposes of establishing ourselves as a secured party. We must create that separation between the living being, Betty, and the trade name strawman, Betty Boop. Otherwise, another purpose of the secured party creditor filing is to aid in the protection of all assets held in the estate in your birth certificate. Remember I said you're going to list it all, every single thing down to the toothbrush, which is held by the trade name. The estate encompasses everything from property to bank accounts. So when you've done this process, you're basically cancelling out all the registrations, licensing, and everything. It's going to take a few of us, but we're going to set this up so that the Treasury know who we are. And this process the main event is to send it to the treasury, which means you've basically got a treasury account now that you are going to set all your bills off, your public bills. Now that we've established what the trade name is, we must establish what a secured party is. A secured party is one who holds an interest in a company's assets. They would record this interest in the public records by publishing it in the public, the newspaper, or the government gazette. If people who research, it's equivalent to the UCC1 filing statement in America. So if the trade name is a business, remember we say your all caps is a franchise of RSA Inc. And we as the live beings hold an interest in the estate of the trade name. We must file a security bond, an indemnity bond, to give notice to the public that we have put a lien, we have bonded our names, our property, and everything pertaining to the trade name. So, you know, when you've got a farm and before, people take an insurance out on their title deed, which most people do now. So basically, if you wanted to go and you had a bond on your house, or you wanted to take a loan out for something, it's your decision whether you want to set it off or you can actually just leave it there. We'll get into that on another lesson of the two options you have. So we can publish in the government gazette with the UPU bond number. So this security bond number, we use the registered mail number. And we'll go through that. It's in another lesson again. We've done the UPU, and there are lots of notes backdated in lots of the Zooms last year with lots of details about signing your blue pen. Don't ever use black pens on anything. Just stick to blue pens or violet pen. So your security number, what we do is we draw up a security agreement and you mail it to yourself. And then you get your security bond number. So that UPU number, which is international jurisdiction, remember I told you it runs the world. By the time you send your bond to the Treasury on bond paper, which we'll teach you about, very beautiful and official, you're in the international jurisdiction because it moves everything around. And they can't ever refuse that. So you have an official bond number. With the Land Recording Office, which is the Land Recording Office for the Jural Assembly, we sent it up. Meanwhile, you will have two numbers, one for the trademark copyright, and the other one is for the security agreement, the bond, the insurance claim. So now you can see the copyright agreement is the first workshop we'll do, and then the second one will be your security agreement. Once you've got those two together, we've got templates. There'll be templates, but we'll explain and go through the entire thing so that you can know exactly what you're doing. So, and then the trademark copyright, and then your other number is the bond. So the lien, the bond itself, is established by the security agreement between the secured party and the trade name. So it's a private agreement that you notify Treasury. There's another, you can do another little added tweak once you've done this, where you can actually just have all your bills sent straight to Treasury actually. So the security agreement is a private agreement which specifies that the straw man must perform as the transmitting utility. It's the moving vessel. So for instance, when you get a notice of motion from the court, it's an intention to move. So you're making an announcement to move. And the minute you say, I'm going to oppose this motion, you've set the motion. So your bond's going to be tackled by the courts. They're going to take from your bond, which specifies that the debtor straw man must perform as the transmitting utility, the moving vessel for the secured part.
Oops, apologies. Shaka, can you check and see if Karen is still on the...
Someone
Two.
muted me. Someone muted me. Sorry.
Okay. Okay.
So I
Sorry,
don't-
Carl. Go ahead.
How long were we? Are
I'm
we?
sorry, I think that was me. I was trying to stop that other noise.
That's fine.
Apologies,
Only
everybody.
only
I'll start with the security agreement is a private agreement which specifies that the strawman must perform as the transmitting utility, the moving vessel, for the secured party in commerce, the living man. So the strawman in truth can't move. So this whole transmitting utility, you turn your copyright, Crown copyright strawman name into your robot, I suppose, robot slave. It becomes your transmitting utility. He moves everything around for you on your behalf under your instruction. He cannot speak. He cannot do anything. So for the secure party in commerce, in exchange for the secured party providing assets and collateral to the debtor, that's the bills of exchange comes in. This would be called equal consideration. So now you've got a balanced situation. This agreement would also specify the sum of typically 700 or 700 million rand on your bond, because they do take it into your grave, as Zita's lesson taught us last night. They carry on trading while you're dead, remembering that your birth certificate is a death estate until you stop it. So as the security interest from the debtor strawman to the secured party. The security interest amount should be a high enough number to ensure that the secured party will always have the paramount claim of interest over all assets and property of the debtor trade name. We put this amount in because I don't know for the people who missed it, we suddenly thought of Zimbabwe and how it costs you $1 million for a loaf of bread. So we considered that, also went into it, and you can take 30 days, you can change the amount. So to help you understand more, look up the secured party definition and other related terms in Black's Law Dictionary. There's a lot on it, and there's a lot of videos out there to learn more processes. Unfortunately, not any from South Africa, and remembering they've got the UCC, and they all do the UCC financing statement, which they think is the bond. And many people have got themselves into trouble because no, it isn't. It's a public notice that there is a bond on your name, so that when you do, say somebody sends you a bill in your all capital name, instead of going or a court citation, you can conditionally accept it and say, here are my charges, and you can send them the copyright trademark agreement so that they can know what your charges are. And that's your Gazette publishment, which is equivalent to the UCC1. It is also very important. You have to put it into the public because it gives notice to all agencies, meaning that no agency can compel the debtor to turn over the assets before first meeting its 700 million rand bond obligation to the secured party. So this is how all assets of the trade name can be protected by the proper use of the secured party creditor process. Say you do your process, you've got a mortgage, you get into trouble, and they want to foreclose on you. You just say, okay, but then you're going to have to pay the 700 million rand bond to me first. And you see, that's the end of it. They quickly accept the bills of exchange rather, because that is, once again, it's got value. So now the holder in due course, I'll tell you a funny little story that I picked up on court cases. The guys that are really good at court, they go in, instead of saying, I'm not the living woman and I'm not the living man, which I must tell you does not work. But what I have seen work is the judge will say, is your name Betty Ann Boop? And you'll say, Betty Holder in due course. You correct him, because you'll now understand what the holder in due course concept is. The holder in due course is a concept that refers to the party who holds an important and often negotiable document. Bill, court case, tax assessment, all your municipal bills. When you're holding it in your hand, you're the holder in due course because it's the value. This document is sometimes referred to as an instrument. Now you'll start seeing me get into commerce, which we'll go into heavily this year, because it's important that all of us know how to do this. Or that you'll find you can do it on behalf of other people once you get knowing how the whole thing works. So because it is often an instrument of payment, this might include a banknote. Your rand note is an instrument. It's a negotiable instrument. This might include a banknote, draft, check, bill of exchange. The holder is temporarily the owner of the document that holds the value. At some point, the document is negotiated and used as a useful commercial tool. The holder is referred to as the assignee. They are in possession of the assignor's rights and liability. So the holder is a very important role. They are responsible for the document that is free of claims from the owners. So when you're in court, the court case is the document, because that court document sitting on the judge's face is the thing that has the value. They want to take that document and they want to cash it in against your copyright crown name. So by you saying, okay, you can be the defendant, and they're going to try and go into your account. So you put yourself and say, okay, judge, I'm the holder in due course. That means, hey, buddy, I own all the value right now, because that bill of exchange is in my name as a defendant. Because they're going to, you're guilty. As I said, just by using your crown copyright, you're guilty, and they assume you to be guilty anyway. But you're saying, okay, I'm holding the holder in due course, which is the value of that court case there. It's the only value there is in the whole room that you're going to draw out of my Setiki trust. So I'm saying, okay, now I know this. Judge, you must set this off. I'm just the beneficiary. Yes, anything you say, I'm guilty, guilty, guilty. Thanks very much. I'm the holder in due course. Please discharge the bill to the clerk, because you're the administrator. Bye, and you walk out. Now that's for mostly magisterial courts when there's monetaries involved, from tickets to mortgages and things like that. You can claim it all. You can do mortgages, everything that I've mentioned in this, as negotiable instruments. So the holder is in a very important role. They are responsible for the document that is free of claims from the owners. In this role, the holder in due course can treat the document or instrument as a source of money or payment method. Now you'll start seeing you are not the holder in due course until you've done this process. So this concept of holder in due course can be translated into real world situations. According to the Universal Commercial Code, the UCC, which most people should know by now, it's the rules of the world's political and court systems and commerce. It's the old law merchant. And you need a UCC to be able for government to make policies, legislations, and codes which are not laws. And the holder in due course is the current owner. So whoever is holding the power of that document that needs a signature, it's going to pay all the bills for the court case, all of them. And you're saying, okay, I've got a 700 million bond on there. Let's sign this one off. You can do it before you go to the court. They have the right to sue for monetary damages in their own name. So we can use that document in our name, in our hand, to sue, and you could, for monetary damages. If anyone takes your name and utilizes it for criminal action, which is all is, you can actually have them up with criminal penalties. So a common situation when this occurs is when a holder is in charge of collecting a third-party check for the issuance of payment. Now that you have the idea of what the holder in due course is, and you can do the slog to be one, it gives you the right to do bills of exchange, as you will have a lien bond with a birth certificate bond number to quote on the bills of exchange that Treasury has in their care. I'm touching on bills of exchange, so because I know a lot of people are going to need to do it, but it's not something you can just pull templates out for and think you're going to know how you do it. You've got to understand what we're discussing here tonight, and then you do your workshops and fill out your documents with all the help that you can get, because you don't want to balls it up. But it's definitely, in the fiat system, it's the correct way to function in the world. So when you receive a municipal bill, this is important, folks. So I'm not going to confuse you by saying actually, in the long run, and it's not that important now, but just for this section, everything actually is a trust. Everything they're setting up, your bill of exchange, your debtor, your creditor, your straw man, it's all trust. But they put the fiction of commerce as the front for it. So we still function in commerce, but once you know how a trust works, you'll start seeing it hidden in all of this. And once you know the very basics of how a trust functions, especially a living trust, you should be setting them up all day long as you go along, and know how to speak as though you're a trustee, a beneficiary, or the manager of the trust. So let's go into the bills of exchange. When you receive a bill, a municipal bill, it is in fact not actually a debt at all, but it is an offer to the creditor, the living man, to get the straw man agent, Bob, to ask the living man, Bob, if he would like to contribute, pay, set off some real credit to the municipal agency supplying the services they are asking you to contribute to for the extra added expenses they've got. Do you see how different it is? It puts us in charge. So once you're the secure party creditor, you're in the financial system and you're basically in charge of all your assets. We're the guinea pigs. This has been going on for 20, 30 years. But we are going to be the guinea pigs on the common law basis. There are lots of you all running down and doing bills of exchange. Beware, folks. Play very, very safe. And embark on this secured party credit to make it a lot easier. Not that you're not going to get some back, but by then, once you've done this, there's no ways they can refuse it. Their refusal of a bills of exchange is actually an acceptance, because they've contracted by refusing the bills of exchange. So now you've got to know how to do your notice. So those for the people doing bills of exchange. So we can also do what is referred to as securing our assets that are being held by the financial institutions and government agencies, such as loans, bonds, or tickets. So they can hold them, but we own them. Whenever we sign for something, such as when we sign a promissory note for a mortgage, the banking institution holds onto the assets that belong to us and give us the liability side of the transaction. So if you haven't got the secure party and your insurance number, you're still acting within the debt system and you're still discharging under fiat currency values. And gives us the liability side of the transaction, which is the obligation to pay. And you can't pay in a debt system, you can only discharge. You don't want to discharge, you want to set off so that our public debt gets paid off. And that's the difference between this one, doing bills of exchange, when you've got this set up, and one where you haven't. So, I think once a lot of us do this, the other process where the people haven't done this would become easier for them. remembering that we can actually do this on behalf of other people. Once you've set up associations, communities, tribes, trusts, family trusts, you can discharge. I mean, you can set off for the beneficiaries. So you can either redeem the asset. Okay, so this is it, which is the obligation to pay. With the secured party creditor filing, we are placing ourselves in a position to either redeem our asset, to close out that account, which means you take your house, your title, and everything, or this is the other side, you discharge the debt to close out the account. So Aubrey's group are doing the discharging of the debt to close out the account, but here we're saying we're redeeming our assets and close out that account. So we're setting it off. That's a payment. A discharge is a promise to pay in the future. So you haven't set off your assets. They're still floating. So we have our remedy to either redeem our assets or discharge our debt, but we must first have the correct status established in commerce, since only secured parties can operate on the credit side of any transaction. No one other than the secured party creditor can ever, or a child that hasn't been registered at birth, you cannot, you're a debtor, no matter what. Debtors can only operate on the liability side and must pay their obligations. So, by what authority does one have to establish oneself as a secured party creditor or a trade name strawman corporation? In commerce, it is one who provides the funding of a corporation that acquires the bond, the right against all assets of that corporation. So we are the only real money that they have, and we must stop them stealing it. And the correct way is to ask us, not tell us. We've got to reverse this table. In other words, when a baby has a birth certificate issued against their flesh and blood, body, the corporation is created. But it is the child who in their lifetime will provide all of this energy and funding for the corporation. Therefore, that child can eventually establish themselves as a secured party creditor for the debtor trade corporation and thereby secure all assets and collateral pertaining to the trade name. So the living man is claiming all the real assets, and he's explaining that he's got an agent who does all the running for him. And that's who the government's happier then, because it's copywritten. And if they use it, you send them fat bills. So when the certificate of live birth is issued, remember that's the one, it is done so without any face value. It's a blank check that goes to the treasury, and then it goes onto the stock market. And that's when it starts getting added to. It's similar to a blank check. So you know it has value, you just don't identify the value until it's time to close out an account. We do this by sending an indemnity bond along with our acceptance of the government's order in 1933 to remove all money from substance and provide our credit to that order to the Treasury to be held in trust with the value of 700 million rands. This bond is to be used to discharge our public debt. So actually setting them off. Either discharge, but we want to rather set them off. All of this is done in accordance with the Uniform Commercial Code, provisions, and research. So when you guys start your workshops, we're going to teach how to do the tax revocation, all of that. This is all going to come very handy. So it is important to have a fundamentally accurate process for ease of enforcement. This process includes the security agreement. That's the bond. The security agreement is your listing of all your collateral and assets. And then we we set up a bond from the security agreement, and you put it in a nice border, and you make it like a proper bond when you get a stock or a bond on bond paper, and that goes to, that's a value. And that bond is an official bond that you let government know that you've taken over. And all the public statutory trust funds you will organize a straw man to remain in honor and set those off or discharge them. So your security agreement, like I said, with your the most difficult document I've ever done is actually the copyright document. I nearly went crazy for weeks. So it's a very good template but you'll learn so much just from reading the security agreement and the copyright. Your security agreement, as I've said, is basically listing your entire collateral, your assets. So your publishment in your government gazette or the land recording office or actually is a chargeback order and a common law copyright. It is important to remember, so you've got a chargeback order, which is your security agreement, and a common law copyright. So only you and your straw man can use that capital name. So anyone with a CIPC company, I highly recommend that we'll teach you how to do the revocation and use your copyright agreement, and that will stop your company from being, I don't know what they would do. I'm sending mine now, and so I'll let you all know what happens. So it is important to remember that this is a simple outline of some of the components of secured party creditor filing. You must do your own research to ensure your process is complete before moving forward with discharging debts and redeeming your assets. For those who are serious, I advise to get an authenticated birth certificate in the meantime. I believe they've stopped us from getting a particular birth certificate on bond paper for authentication. Somebody did it now the other day through an agent, lawyer company, and it costs 1,500 rand. You can get them. There's some guys that do it for half of that price. And what I haven't inquired whether I can, but I think I can. If you're going to do it, get them to get at least as many copies as you can, because it will probably just be an extra 80 rand per document, because that is the most valuable thing you can walk around with. It's everything. It is you, it's your business. So this process includes security agreement, okay. For those who are serious, okay, so we've got this. So for those, here we are for emancipation status correction. Here's a little, did you put that other one in? Okay, next page. So this is the announcement in the newspaper, but it covers it's going to cover your secured party creditor, your holder in due course, your emancipation document. It's going to cover your security agreement, almost everything. So you could actually put it in now if you wanted to. So that was how it comes from the newspaper. You don't put the whole agreement in. You just do the statement that I've added on here as a template for you guys. And this is how it comes out in the newspaper. Did you see that word tacit there, Michelle? Yeah, that's the one. Yes. Your silence will stand as consent. And I made that mistake. I said tacit. Okay, is it written there?
Yes, it's adjusted in this section.
Tacit approval. Okay, perfect. Yes. Okay, so that's the only notice that goes into the paper or the government gazette, that little square. And then you can see, oh, you didn't put the newspaper clipping in. Oh, you don't have to. I thought it was on the same page.
I can pull it up right away, and you can have a look at that now. Just give me 1 second.
I did the newspaper. I didn't do the government gazette yet. I didn't know about it then. And we're busy exploring it. It seems quite difficult. Oh, shame, you didn't have to do all this.
There we go. So I did block out your private details, but
I've got the exemption process heading in front of me.
That is, oh, okay. Let me try that again. It somehow didn't pick up that document. 1 second. Okay.
If you just make it smaller. If you want to see the whole picture, you can see that's the square. So that's how it looks in the legal place in the newspaper. The government gazette works out a lot cheaper. So the smaller your notice, the better. I think it works on quarter page, third page, eighth of a page. So you're going to just do it once so that it includes all these processes. So the people that have done the emancipation, you can actually put that notice in the newspaper. You'd have to remove the land part if you haven't done the land. So now I'm just bringing this up, and I'm not going to go through the whole document. So for all you guys that have done your emancipation, here it is, your certificate of assumed name, notice of transfer of reserved name. I'll just show you. So most of you have done this. You can move down. Where's the grantor? You're not going to be the beneficiary here. You're going to become the grantor. You see, it's all in here. Everything we've been talking about. It's the municipal corporation, the actual grantee, da-da-da-da. And then you go down to the registration reason. The reinstatement of the actual holder in due course of estate name and estate property and all interest due. Public and private recognition of grantee as holder in due course and lawful entitlement holder of foreign grantor trust name Marianne Jones, da-da-da-da. So your business information is legal entity, heir, grantee, private, public trust. You see, you've got it all. You've done it all, most of you already. I think there's another section. Let's move down. There's your business name. There it all is. Owner information. You're claiming it's a business. You've already claimed your business. So this certificate is to conduct business in commerce in assumed name designed to accompany new business account registration. I wonder how many people have used this document while accompanying it with a bill of exchange for right now. Because if you were, it will help a lot. You just don't have a number on here. You could put your registered mail number and use it on this document, on every single one of these documents if you wanted to. That would be a good idea. So what I would do, I would take this document and I'd put my UPU number on it, and I'd send for 3 or 4 to myself, because the postmaster is going to stamp this document, and then he's going to stamp all your copies of the original. They get endorsed, and you should accompany this document with your bills of exchange. You might even find one of the other ones, percent too. So this certificate is to conduct business in commerce and an assumed name designed to accompany new business account registration. Let's go down. I think that's it. The foreign grantor trust. All violators there. It's all, everything you need in there. Violators not dischargeable in bankruptcy. It's all in there. So there you are. Acknowledgement of head administrator from home office, private banker. There you are. UCT1. That's the private banker. True and real trade name by hand. It's all on your folks. Power of attorney, DBA, jailer. It's all there. Fully exempt. Look here. Sorry, just go back. Trying to go through it. I take office without encumbrance, means there are no liens or levies on my name, on my business, and without debt or other obligation, fully exempt. That your redemption process means you are exempted, indemnified, and without grants of any other power of attorney. There you go, folks. Wonderful. Okay, I added this notice of public officials. I mentioned it at the top. I almost want to put it onto every single lesson. I used it in quite a big, serious situation, and 3 courts denied my case to be brought, because I said anybody who's going to ask me for anything, I won't answer, and I'm not obliged to until you have filled out this public notice. And if you look at it, every single one of these people have to have a hazard and indemnity bond on the public servant. And if they don't produce it, they can't do anything and can't touch you and can't contract with you. It's against the law. So this is you can see it's got all the statements in it. It's not very long, but if the cops arrive at your door, if the mortgage people, if the sheriff generally doesn't have these bonds, and he has absolutely no right to attach anything or sign on your behalf for anything. So here it is. You can go down, and I think that's it. You've got that. It's a fantastic, I use it for everything, government. So there's the questionnaire that you give them. Okay. That's for you, for the people who want the document. Sure, it went on. It was quite long, I think. But thanks, folks. I hope you all got the gist of it.
Thank you so much, Karen.